Hey, thanks everybody for watching yesterday and all your likes, comments, and shares. I really appreciate it. As I'm going down this journey of video blogging, so this is number two, starting up with another one, so I'm back. Today I want to start a conversation around uh, unrealistic expectations, communication, and transparency. So I've been on a lot of different teams, as I said before. And I've asked a lot of people, what is the biggest problem that you're running into on your teams and your engineering teams? And they're saying that unrealistic expectations are a big problem. Whereas you're at some level in the command structure and you can't really define to the people above you how difficult or how much work it takes to get something done. And the managers are expecting so much. They want this much work done here, or some technical person will say, hey, we could do this, this, and this. And they say it so matter-of-factly and so easily that it conveys a notion of simplicity to the implementation. And oftentimes the message is kind of garbled because there's a lot of work that goes into that. They say, okay, well, we want to implement this new search feature on this application. And implementing this new search feature to a product owner or a big manager or an executive or owner of the company, they would be like, oh, it's just a little form box that we just stick on the page and we've got this search functionality. Okay, let's keep in mind that Google built their entire business on that little search bar for quite a while. And they still make tons of money on that. So this little search bar takes a lot more to do. You've got to ensure that your data's built in the proper way so that it can be searchable. And there's other dependencies like other systems that need to be brought into the system to make sure that the data's indexed, formed properly, and you've got to be able to link that up from the front ends to the back ends and write all the supporting code that implements that search feature. Now, your search feature could be, a search form that's got a ton of different fields on it that filters the search. Well, that's more of an advanced search. That means more front-end work and more back-end work and more code to back that up. And with more code becomes complexity. Now, with that complexity comes more prone to failure. So something could break. So you have to test it and ensure that this is functional in the way that we desired that function. So then all that work that comes together takes time. So the assumption by the engineer to say, hey, this is an easy implementation, I could do this pretty easily. And they're abstracting away all their knowledge and not communicating the full scope of work to these upper level managers. So these upper level managers then take it as, oh, this guy knows exactly what he's talking about, and it's very simple to do. So we could probably expect this within the next week. And what happens is oftentimes an estimation by an engineer is probably around 40% of the actual work required to get it done. That means the engineer is only estimating 40%. I've tested this a few times to say, okay, how long is it going to take to get this done? And they say, a week or so. Well, okay, it takes about a week and a half to get it done. So acknowledging that the engineer is well intentioned in the fact that, oh, I want to deliver this quickly and get it done for my boss. That's awesome. But what they're failing to do is acknowledge the other work that needs to be done, because they're not acknowledging the work that needs to be done by the QA team, by the UX guys, by the product team, by themselves, the extra work they have to do. So there's like 60% more work that has to be done that's often not communicated. So this form of communication, this ties into communication, these unrealistic expectations. What I've found is like when I'm seeing that one of my managers isn't really understanding what it takes for me to get the job done, that falls on my shoulders. That's my responsibility to communicate that very well. I've got to be able to articulate all of the dimensions of the effort that it's going to take to get that done. Now, another thing that I've noticed throughout, managing these large projects and working on these large teams is there's a degree of transparency that has to be had in order for a relationship between, a client, a customer, who could be, an external customer or an internal customer or another teammate that's relying on you to get something done, is communicating openly and honestly and asking for the help when they need to. Oftentimes I find the junior engineers, they're like concerned about, looking dumb or having to look something up or asking for assistance. Now, it's cool to ask for assistance, but you've also got to help yourself. So understanding this transparency concept and tying it into communication. So with an external client or an internal client, you've got to be able to say, okay, this is what we're running into. So if I'm managing a project, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, okay, this is our scope of work. This is roughly what we're thinking it's going to be. So that's the strategic mission of what we're going to do. But then when the team goes in and they start working on all the things that have to happen and managing the risks and implementing new technologies and figuring something out along the way that's custom to this business that's never been encountered before, they have to get some degree they have to get tactical with it and understand how to deal with these things as they happen. Now, oftentimes they can handle these issues and they can handle them pretty well, and they're doing all the right things for the 3 to 5 days, maybe even a couple of weeks that it took for them to implement that feature. What they didn't do along the way is communicate those pains and those issues up to the upper management. Meanwhile, in another room, the management's talking about, well, why is this feature taking so long? Or what's happening here? And they're not flowing that information back up and down the chain accordingly, and creating this transparent environment to say, hey, we ran into this issue with this integration with this third-party vendor here. So we've got to be able to communicate that across all the levels so everybody's aware of what's going on, and we're managing that promise, that commitment to deliver this product in a way to this individual. So with that degree of transparency, that builds more trust. And I advocate this heavily when I'm working on projects with my guys and my teams to say, hey, we ran into this problem here. This is the impact that it's going to have. So how can we, work this out to have a proper delivery and give you what you want in as timely a manner as possible? Because we all know that things happen during software development. And it happens. And what I've seen in companies is that they'll create this layer of opacity between their engineering team and the client. And that's not healthy. It's not truthful, really. They're saying, oh, everything's fine, everything's great, check out this new feature here. And meanwhile, the team is struggling with this issue here. Whereas I feel that if we communicate that issue early enough and openly enough, and we're honest about it, and we say, hey, we ran into this issue, it's going to take us a little bit more time to get it done, and this is the impact. It's going to take us a little bit longer to get this done, and we're going to have to do some research to figure this out here. And we hadn't really honestly thought about it until we got there because it was kind of buried underneath the rest of the requirements. So managing your commitment along the way with your engineering teams, using clear communication, owning that communication and saying, hey, this is my bad. You didn't understand it well enough. So maybe I can lay it out a little bit better for you and explain the details a little bit more so that you can get a clearer understanding of what it actually takes to get this done. And then being transparent and honest about that communication will actually lead to less unrealistic expectations. It's not going to be that fast delivery that's lower quality. You're going to get that high quality product, and you might even be given the time to get that done. So that's my thoughts on unrealistic expectations, communication, and transparency. Thanks for watching. And again, I really want to appreciate all of you guys who and gals who commented, liked, and shared the video and found something valuable out of it. Let me know what you think.